This is a short training video on the GYS Neopulse 300 T2 Pulse MIG welder. To start off, we're going to turn the machine on the back of the machine. The first screen we come up to is do we want to replace the existing data. I'm going to say escape, and that will default to our previous settings from the previous weld. If there is no SD card in the machine, you will not see that message. So the first thing we do, we come up, it doesn't know what torch we're working with. So I'm going to hit torch number 1, and that just activated torch number 1. The top menu items are controlled with the left knob. So I can scroll through these, and the first thing I have to do is identify my type of wire. I'm going to press the button in, and then I can make those changes. In this welder in torch 1, I have steel with argon CO2 mix. The symbol for steel is Fe. Argon CO2, I'm going to enter it by pressing the button in. I'm going to scroll to the left, enter. It pulls down my menu to set the wire size, 0.8 millimeter. And then I'm going to go over, do I want it in standard or pulse mode? I can hit the button and activate the menu, drop down and set standard or pulse. Spot is for plug welds, and delay is to delay the wire pulse. 2T is to hit the trigger and hold the trigger while the wire feeds, then let up, standard MIG welder. 4T, if you want to use it, you hit the trigger, it feeds wire until you hit the trigger again. But for the most part, you're going to leave it for steel in standard mode, 2T. And we're ready to weld. So now I can take my torch, go ahead and hit the torch, and it will weld. In the middle of the screen are two more items. That's what we will use the right side knob for, to switch between those two. The left side is the metal thickness, so I set my metal thickness, enter. The other side is my arc length, enter, and I can change, I can go negative or positive. We recommend you start off at 0 and make adjustments as needed. Enter to lock it in, and you are ready to weld. If you want to switch to the other torch, to number 2, just hit the trigger and it switches over to torch 2, right here. Always indicated on the screen in the lower right hand corner. I have already set this up for silicon bronze CUSI-3 with argon. If you're going to use aluminum or something else, you're going to enter by pressing the knob that activates the menu, and then we can go to aluminum magnesium, or I can go to aluminum silicone. Just depends on what I'm going to put in the machine. So we're going to leave it with CUSI-3 with argon. I'm going to go over, and my wire size is 0.8. Enter. So now I'm ready to weld with my torch number 2 with silicon bronze. You'll notice also that it's in pulse mode. If I want to change that, I go to the left knob, I scroll over to pulse, enter it, go to standard, enter. Now it's going to weld in standard mode, not pulse. To change or load wire in this machine, incidentally, I mentioned the SD card earlier. That's where it's located. If I just press it in and pop it out to the inactive position, now the welder, when we start it, will not give us that screen at the beginning asking to replace or escape. Like all MIG welders, we've got our spool with our spool lock. Put spool on. To release this, we're just going to pull this down. It takes the tension off the wire, and we can feed our wire through and into the torch. Then we just lock that down. One thing you want to do whenever you change wire, we want to make sure we have the correct rollers. Our wire, these rollers are 1/0, which means they're set up for 1 millimeter wire. I actually have 0.8 millimeter wire in it. The other side is 0.8. So I've got 1/0 on one side, 0.8 on the other. So I'll do that so the number is facing out of the wire size that I've installed. So I'm going to flip these over. So now they both read, they're both on 0.8, which is 0.8 wire. I'm going to go ahead and flip my door back up. Put the thumb screw back in. Hand tighten. Put my roller locks back on. This is a tension adjustment to set the initial tension on the machine. If you want, you can loosen this until you hold the trigger and no wire feeds, and as you hold the trigger, tighten this down until your wire feeds, and that's a general setting. Then you may want to go a little bit tighter. The same thing on the bottom. On the lower, this is my silicon bronze spool. Same setup here. So whether you're on the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter. You could switch these if you wanted to. You could put aluminum on either side. The only thing you have to make sure of is that you feed the correct gas. And you may need to change that. Right now for this, I don't have any gas installed, but these are the gas ports for torch 1 and 2. So right now I would put argon CO2 mix to number 1 and pure argon to number 2, because that's where my silicon bronze is. That's the basic training, the basic operation of the Neopulse 300 T2.